All right, folks, Yishai Fleischer here. Right now on the table is the hostage deal between Israel, who would basically cease fire and give up some of the strategic positions in Gaza, and Hamas, a terrorist organization that has ruled Gaza since 2005, since Israel left Gaza and gave away that parcel of land to the Palestinian Authority, and then it was soon taken over by Hamas. The Hamas terror organization has been mounting many attacks on Israel and culminating with the big October 7th attack, 2024. The war has raged for over a year. Israel has destroyed many parts of Gaza, but yet the terror tunnel network is still extant. Hostages, over 100, have not been released, have not been found, have not been liberated, and now a deal for ceasefire. Okay, let's analyze it. First, let's get a little bit of a kind of visual report on what this deal is about from ILTV.
Brink of a hostage for ceasefire deal finally coming to fruition. That's the word from President Biden in announcing that the elusive agreement is being reached in Doha. Biden said, "We are poised to agree on the proposal that I laid out months ago." Biden continued, "I have learned that after many years in civil service, never ever give up." President-elect Trump went even further by saying there has been a handshake and the deal could be inked by the end of the week. Speaking on Newsmax, Trump said, "We are very close to getting it done. They have been getting it done. If they don't get it done, there is going to be a lot of trouble like they have never seen before." Once signed, the ceasefire deal reportedly begins with the release of 3 Israeli hostages. According to news reports, after the first 3 are released, the IDF will begin withdrawing from populated areas in Gaza. Then, according to the reports, after a week, Hamas will release another 4 hostages, and Israel will allow the return of displaced Gazan civilians to move from south to North Gaza. The reports say that Israel would then release some 1,000 Palestinian security prisoners, including 190 who have been serving sentences of 15 years or more. Hamas says it will free 34 hostages in the first phases, but Israeli officials put the number at 33. Until the ceasefire begins, the warfare in Gaza is continuing. It's day 466 of the war in Gaza, and the heavy toll goes on. 5 soldiers were killed and 10 others wounded by an explosion in a building in Beit Hanun in northern Gaza. They all served in the Nachal Brigade reconnaissance unit.
Okay, so ILTV reporting that the hostage deal is close, and we also lost 5 soldiers in Gaza this week. So the fighting goes on, and yet a deal is about to happen where the gains that the IDF has made are going to be withdrawn. Israel is going to move its troops out of both the Philadelphia corridor and also the Netzarim corridor close to northern Gaza. We're going to pull out, and there's going to be a ceasefire. Well, who's the victor in that case? Certainly Hamas is going to see itself as a great victor. It's going to see itself as having beaten back the Israeli war machine, the Israeli army, and having liberated Gaza once again from the occupiers. And all of those soldiers that we would have lost would have really fought for naught, because they had not liberated and rescued those hostages. Now, the other side maintains that it's only because of Israel's strength that now Hamas is willing to negotiate. But is that really what we want, that Hamas negotiates? Listen to these words that the incumbent Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, said at his nomination hearing.
Another protester, and I think this one was a member of Code Pink, which, by the way, is a Chinese Communist front group these days, said that you support Israel's war in Gaza. I support Israel's existential war in Gaza. I assume, like me and President Trump, you support that war as well, don't you?
Senator, I do. I support Israel destroying and killing every last member of Hamas.
So killing and destroying every last member of Hamas, that's not what's happening. Not only that, Israel is now promising to up the aid to 600 trucks of food a day as opposed to 500 trucks. And that reminds me, this whole war has been fought with our hands tied behind our back. This whole war has been fought in such a way that the Hamas fighters keep getting fed, because Israel has been sending 500 trucks a day. Now we're going to up it to 600 trucks. Where do you think that food goes? Just to civilians? Absolutely not. Not only that, reports are coming in saying that Hamas has been able to recruit 15,000 to 20,000 new fighters. Well, why not? They're able to dispense the food. They're able to give dispensation to families. And so now young boys are joining the ranks of Hamas instead of being destroyed. Here's Knesset member Amit Halevi from the Likud, and he's turning to President Trump, and he's asking for better policy.
To Honorable President Donald Trump, you said that if the hostages don't return, there will be hell to pay. We, the citizens of Israel, thought that the hell will be unleashed on Gaza, on the Nazi enemy that we faced. But with this deal, the hell unleashed is on the citizens of Israel, on those that will die by the blood-filled hands of the terrorists that shall be released, on those that will be kidnapped by the terrorists that now rebuilding their strength, on those that will die from the rockets that once again will rain down over Israeli civilians. That will be also a tragic victory for America's enemy. You said you want to make America great again, and you do. This is not the way.
So there's Knesset member Amita Levy laying it out and basically telling President Trump, listen, this is somebody's misadvised you. This is some bad policy. We're basically going to allow the bad guys to have a victory, and they will return only some of our hostages, but they will have a victory. They will remain in power. Our army will leave the Gaza Strip and the important corridors, including the Philadelphia corridor, which is how armament flows into Gaza through the Egyptian-controlled Sinai. Okay, there are rallies against such a deal. Let's take a look. The mantra there is "Rak nitzachon yavi nitzachon." Only victory will bring victory, and not succumbing and not giving the enemy what it wants, but rather victory, i.e., destruction. Just like Pete Hegseth said, destruction of our enemy is the way that we're going to have victory. It's not obvious. And on this these posters, it says "Bemotam tzivu lanu nitzachon." In their death, these soldiers commanded us to have victory. All right, so that's the Victory Forum, and they're marching in Jerusalem. Now, I want to tell you a quick story to explain to you why I have such a strong position against this deal, and that's the following. First thing, it's obvious that we all have a heart for the hostages. Look at some of these faces. Look at some of these. These are hostages. This is the Bibas family and their mom. Look at all these young ladies that are still hostages in Gaza. And certainly we want to see them released. But I also know that releasing a lot of terrorists, over 1,000 terrorists with blood on their hands, may be a good feeling for right now, for the short term, but in the end, it'll bring more hostages down the line. It was 2011 when I was living in eastern Jerusalem on the Mount of Olives, and suddenly we heard a tremendous racket outside. What was it? It was the release of a murderer back into our neighborhood, a murderer from Israeli prisons. He was one of the over 1,000 prisoners, terrorists, who were released for Gilad Shalit. Gilad Shalit was an Israeli soldier who was abducted into Gaza by Hamas, and they held him for a long time until finally Netanyahu succumbed to the pressure and gave over 1,000 terrorists, Hamas terrorists from Israeli jails, over to the Gazans and also to places like eastern Jerusalem. Let's take a video and see what that looked like back then, the Gilad Shalit exchange.
He's home. Gilad Shalit got a hero's welcome as he returned to Israel Tuesday. For more than 5 years, he's been held captive in Gaza by Hamas militants. He looks the worse for the wear. Thin and frail, at least one Israeli military official says Shalit is showing signs of malnutrition and lack of exposure to sun. He gave a brief interview to Egyptian TV saying he feared he would be held for many more years and that, of course, he missed his family. Shalit's freedom, though, came at a steep price for Israel. It's releasing more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners whose families greeted them with massive celebrations. Many of the men were serving life sentences for deadly attacks on Israelis, and they too were received as heroes. Though there are celebrations across the region, the deal is not without some scrutiny. There are fears that the lopsided trade will embolden Hamas and other militants to do the same, and that the fighting may increase.
Lopsided trade will embolden Hamas. Does that sound familiar?
But for today, at least, those fears are being put aside as a family, town, and nation simply celebrates the return of a long-lost son. After a long, emotional day in transit, Gilad Shalit is back.
Okay, so Gilad Shalit was back. We're putting aside the lopsided deal. But guess what? The terrorists that were released went to Gaza and formed the next leadership, the next generation of leadership of Hamas, and were the leaders of the October 7th massacre. So you released one Jew for 1,000 terrorists, and it was a beautiful day, and it was a beautiful coming home. But later on, over 1,000 people were killed, and hundreds of people were taken captive and hostage by these very forces that you released in order to get Gilad Shalit. So was it worth it? Of course not. Because while we have a heart for these people, sure, we have a heart for these people, but shouldn't we have a heart for the next captives, God forbid, that are going to happen if you just look at it rationally and reasonably where it leads to? This is not the way this war should have ended. This war should have ended in total annihilation. I don't even want to say the word defeat, because defeat means the other side's still around being defeated. I'm talking about total destruction and annihilation of Hamas. That's what should have happened at the end of this war. Capture and liberation of the Gaza Strip, Israeli governance in the Gaza Strip, with Jewish people living there and with pro-Israel, non-jihad Arabs living there amongst them as Israeli residents. That is the direction this war should have taken. And the October 7th massacre is an opportunity for change. Why do it the same old way? And what's going to happen now? The Palestinian Authority is going to rule the Gaza Strip. There won't be Israeli soldiers on the Philadelphia corridor, and arms are going to flow in from Egypt into Gaza so that the next October 7th is just on the offing for the next generation to deal with. We are doing nothing but kicking the can down the road. This is a bad deal, not because we don't care about the hostages. We do. We want to see them come home through liberation, through the destruction of our enemies. Do it the right way. They need to be released the right way, not in a way that gives a tremendous boost to Hamas. Hamas should be destroyed. Israel should control the Gaza Strip and should liberate those hostages. Not this way, though. This is not the way forward. And it's time. It's time for good policy to come forward. It's time for a change. October 7th is an opportunity for change. The Trump administration is an opportunity for change. It's time to do things the right way and not the wrong way. All right, folks, if you love the fight for Israel, if you love Israel and you want to fight for Israel, and you love the fight for Israel because you know it's our time. After 2,000 years, we've come back to the land of Israel, and we're fighting for this land. And a strong Israel is a blessing for the world, and it's God's, the apple of his eye. It's God's great dream that the Jewish people return back to the land of Israel, and that Israel is successful and strong, and that actually a strong Israel is a blessing for this region. If you know that, then join us at fightforisrael.org. We've got a lot of projects like the Biblical Highway. That's the central highway in the land of Israel that includes all the most of the biblical holy sites from Beersheba to Hebron, to Jerusalem, to Bethel, to Shiloh and Shechem. Join us in the fight for Israel and the beautification for the land of Israel. We're spreading the Abrahamic faith, restoring Israeli holy sites. We're helping Israeli farmers have tractors. And of course, here at Yishai Fleischer TV, we are broadcasting truth and courage. So join us at fightforisrael.org. Let's fight for a strong Israel, not a weak Israel like this deal, not a capitulating Israel. You can write me an email, yishai@yishaifleischer.com. And another way to support our broadcasts is through buymeacoffee.com/Yishai. Lots of love and lots of strength. We shall get through this. This is not a good deal, but it's not the end of Israel. Israel continues to fight. Israel continues to survive and thrive. We'll get through it. We're going to get great leadership down the line. that's going to make strong decisions and decisions that are going to benefit people in this region, Israel, and all peoples that love peace and freedom and want to walk the path of Abraham, the path of God. God bless you folks wherever you are. Stay strong, stay tuned, stay connected, stay part of the story. Lots of love and lots of blessings from Yerushalayim, from the holy city, from Judea, from this great and good land. God bless you wherever you are, and shalom.